Coming up 78 Denver, take one.
Steve. Marker.
So for those of you that showed up today on short notice, especially, we appreciate you coming. And for you online, we've got over 100 emails saying that people will be watching it around the world. So this is for everybody everywhere, and it's kind of the wave of the future. It's interesting to know that I'm talking to someone now. I might be in Germany or Russia or Egypt or something. Anyways, I'm John Coffey, and Glen Trew bought Coffee Sound, and I'm now part of the True Audio group of branches. And Glen is here today to talk about the Sound Devices 664 mixer. He went back to the factory last week and got up close and personal time with the machine. He also talked to John Tatulis for some time personally with it. And I understand that John may be watching us online today. For those of you who have questions, we have Ryan operating the online, and you can, as it go along, he has a microphone. He can stop and ask Glenn questions along the way if you need to. Also, well, the event will be about an hour and a half, and we'll have a good barbecue afterwards. And for you online people, we'll tell you how good it was. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce Glen Trew, and he's the president of True Audio. Come on up, Glen.
Okay. Up this way. Thanks, John, and thanks to everybody for braving Carmageddon. I think, John, you explained Carmageddon online, right? So, you did explain Carmageddon? Okay, I won't go through that again. But we like here at Coffee Sound, we like to have barbecues every so often on Saturdays, and since Sound Devices is releasing a new machine, brand new machine, this month, we thought it'd be a good time to talk about that while everybody was here. So, thanks very much. So, the new machine, as most people are aware, is called the 664. It's a mixer/recorder. But before we go into the machine itself, I want to talk a bit about Sound Devices, the company, and its relationship with True Audio over the years. I first became aware of the Sound Devices company in 1999. I'll have a PowerPoint here. Nice. In 1999, there was a company called Audio Media Magazine. It had its U.S. Version was based in Nashville, and they brought over to my desk this device called the MM1. There's a microphone preamp with a company I'd never heard of before stamped on it called Sound Devices. Looked it over and thought it did a really good job of being the kind of equipment that our customers use, rugged, reliable, phantom power, et cetera, and wrote a favorable review about it. The guys at Sound Devices, who I'd never met before, liked it, and they thought that the company True Audio seemed to identify well with the kind of products they were making. So Jim Kumar made a trip to Nashville to meet us to see if he thought we'd like to become a dealer and see if we would meet his criteria for becoming a dealer to sell their products. And I really appreciated Jim coming all the way to Nashville, because Nashville is a fairly isolated place, not the easiest place to get to. But now that I'd been to the Sound Devices factory, I realized that the hardest part isn't getting to Nashville. The hardest part is getting out of Reedsburg, Wisconsin, because it is way out there. It's beautiful, beautiful, scenic, very rural area. But so now I appreciate that trip of about 13 years ago even more. So thanks, Jim. So since that time, Sound Devices has grown, True Audio has grown. We've grown together, and looking back from now to then, it's very poignant, because the degree of sophistication that their equipment has, the way they've been received by the entire world of sound for film and video, especially, is just really amazing. So, as a company, True Audio really appreciates the relationship we have with Sound Devices. As John mentioned, I took a trip to the Sound Devices factory just a few days ago. This trip had been planned for several months because our service department, head service tech and service manager, Forrest Forbes, had scheduled a trip to Sound Devices for factory training for service. A lot of folks here may not know, but in Canada, our store in Toronto has been the warranty service center for sound devices for about 4 years now. So we've had our techs visit the factory for factory service for quite a while. This was Forrest's first time, and so he spent 3 days there at the factory getting service training. So True Audio, the Los Angeles service department of True Audio is now the warranty service center for the U.S. So in Toronto, the service center is True Audio in Toronto, and in the U.S., it's True Audio in Los Angeles. So not only did he receive factory training, but as I mentioned, we're now warranty authorized in the U.S. and Canada. So what that means is if you're a sound mixer and you have sound devices equipment in Canada and it needs warranty service, you don't have to go through the expense and the hassle of shipping across a national border. The time delay, the expense, and so forth. If you're in Toronto, you can walk right over to the service department, talk to Redmond, and he'll fix you up. And in the U.S., especially if you're in the Los Angeles area, you don't have to ship it off to the factory. You can simply drive it over to the shop here in Hollywood, and we can work on your equipment. And Forrest has a really good relationship with the service people at Sound Devices, so we can work on it with confidence. First of all, anybody who owns Sound Devices equipment know that there's something special about it. It's solid, it's well thought out, it's not overly complex, but it's complex enough to do the jobs we need. It's not complex enough to be distracting, but it's not so simple we can't do very demanding work with it. Even when you receive it in the box, it says it inspires confidence. You like the equipment. When you talk to the people at Sound Devices, you like dealing with them. And I'm just here to say that that's not an accident. And you're not the only ones who feel that way. It's planned in every facet of the operation. It's ingrained in the people who work there, the factory workers. It's ingrained in the people who design. Even in the factory itself. The new factory, just to the right of this sign, is 28,000 square foot, 2-story building. That's enormous. So Jim Kumar greets me, and he takes me to the first floor, which is where the factory part is, where the assembly takes place, shipping, receiving, all the testing. There's a special service department just for the assembly area. So all the parts, stock is shelved there. So you go in, and you sort of, just the word factory suggests a dingy, dark place. If this is anything but. It's bright, it's cheerful. The ceiling and the walls are white. The floor is a newly poured, static-free, light cream color paint. So it's all done with purpose, and everything contributes to having the kind of gear we like using from Sound Devices. I talked to most everybody there that was working there at the time, and I could tell they were very interested in what they were doing. They were happy to be working there. And I tried as well as I could to relay your feelings about the equipment to them, which they really appreciated. So it brought smiles on everybody's faces knowing that you guys are using their equipment on well-known TV shows and movies and so forth. It meant a lot to them. And that brings us to their latest machine called the 664. As most people know, the 664 is the next evolution of their mixer recorder combination. But what is it? Is it a mixer or is it a recorder? I was referring to it as a mixer recorder. But the guys at Sound Devices made a point to say this is a mixer. And by the way, it has an integrated recorder. But if you notice in the Sound Devices line of recorders and mixers, there's two categories. Audio recorders, which is the 7 series, and then the field mixers, which is the black ones, starting with Mix Pre on up to the 664, the new one. So we've got recorders on the top, mixers on the bottom. Hi, Lisa. There's chairs here up front if you want. Thanks. Good morning. How was Carmageddon? Another non-event. By the way, for those who stayed out because of Carmageddon, second year in a row it was a non-event. That's the unanimous consensus here. So next year, come on out. Okay, so Sound Devices has the two categories for these devices. The recorders, the 7 series, and the mixers. The black ones here from the Mix Pre to the 664. The 664 is in the mixer category. So that they make it, they're very adamant about it being a field mixer, not being referred to as a recorder. Yes, it has a recorder in it, and it's a very capable recorder, as we'll find out here shortly. But it is a 6-input field mixer, and by the way, an integrated 10-track recorder. Integrated. Primarily a mixer with a recorder built in. So the 664, if you look at it, it's instantly familiar. If you know the previous versions, like the 442 mixer and the 552, it let's see, it has where's the slide? There we go. It has the same arrangement with the main fader knob, and on the left you have a low cut a gain, and then low cut on the right. Unless I've got that reversed. The PFL switch up on top, and left-right pan. That has been consistent from the 442 through this device. And I'll say this too. Going back to the part about being a mixer, its design intent was primarily to be a field mixer. So you send an input, you route it through it's routed through the knobs and the controls there, and then stays in analog form until it goes out the outputs. Okay. The part about it being a recorder is that the recording tracks will always follow the mixer outputs, right? And we'll get more into that here in just a second. Okay, so it has the 664, by the way, where that number comes from. You have 6 mic line inputs, 6, and they're in XLRs across the side there, full-size XLRs. You have 6 pre-fader direct outputs on the miniature TA connectors here. Oops, I've got 7 there. Actually, that's not one of them, so there are just 6 pre-fader direct outs. So the 6 mic line inputs, that's the first 6 of the name. The 6 pre-fader direct outputs, that's the second 6 of the name. And for the outputs, there's 2 main outputs, the left and right. There's the primary mix outputs. That's always going to be post-fader mix. You cannot assign something pre-fader to those outputs. It will always be post-fader to the left and right mix outputs. In addition to those, there are, this is not highlighted, but there are 2 auxiliary outputs. There's these 2 TA3s here. They're labeled X1 and X2. That's for aux1 and aux2. So those combine with the 2 mix buses to have 4 mix outputs. So that's the 4 of the 664. Got 6 inputs, 6 pre-fader direct outs, and 4 mix buses. All right. In addition, there are 2 standard 10-pin Hiroshi connectors. A lot of people call them camera connections because it's used often to send the outputs of a mixer to the camera. And that connector also has returns, stereo returns, so you can monitor from the recorder, typically from a camera. So it has these 2, but it actually has the ability to monitor 3 return sources, because you have the 2 10-pins, and you have a third one here on a mini connector. It has a built-in slate mic, but also has a connector for external slate. And let's see, it's so common now to use a device like this with a full crew, with a boom operator and an assistant. So even this small device has a private line comm circuit built in. So you can... Is someone trying to get in? Okay, Sherry. I think she has a key. Okay, so let's see. The private line and comm circuit is built into the device, so you can use it as pretty much as a full-size desk-style mixer and talk privately to the boom operator. Have the boom op talk privately back to you, even though it is a small ENG-style mixer. On the back of the, also on the back. First of all, this is the comm circuit for return and send. For the comm, and these two highlighted BNC connectors over here are word clock for syncing the recorder to another device. And the power is with 5 AA's, or it'll take external voltage of 10 to 18 volts on a standard, the small 4-pin Hiroshi connector. Right. So the 664 has the ability to be expanded with a device, an accessory called the CL6. You can see the CL6 mounts on top here, but actually it can just as easily mount on the bottom. There's a little plug on the top and the bottom. Remove the plug and there's a connector, and the CL6 snaps into place, and long screws can connect the two together. So if you go with the CL6 accessory, that adds 6 inputs, right? So now you have 6 and 6, 12 inputs. You have a 12-input mixer, and it also adds the 6 recording tracks so that you can record these additional inputs pre-fader, right? All right, so you have a total of 12 inputs for the mixer, and a total then of 16 tracks for the recorder. Any questions, by the way, about the mixer functions at this point? I'll take that in just a second. But before we go there, I want to say that the mixer is brand new. In fact, it's so new, nobody on this continent has one. Yeah, except in Reedsburg. Okay. The original schedule was for the dealer demo units to ship by the end of last week on Friday. Things ran up against the wall, and they were doing some last-minute adjustments to firmware and so forth. So unfortunately, ours didn't arrive in time to hold it here. Yeah. But the representatives from Sound Devices, Ed Kapp and Matt Mayer, will be in Los Angeles Monday and Tuesday. They'll be at the Coffee Sound location on Tuesday for an open house. And on Monday, they'll be at our friend's place at Location Sound on Monday. So once you get the information here, if it's possible, I recommend coming back on Tuesday to see the device and talk to the people who are involved in making it. And if you can't make it Tuesday, I suggest visiting Location Sound to meet Matt and Ed Kapp there. In fact, if you've got Monday and Tuesday open, I'd go to both. And the more you can't get too much information about a device like this. And also, you're going to meet different people at each place, probably, and the same people, and bouncing ideas from the people in attendance. You're just going to learn that much more. So, I'm sorry, you had a question, yes, sir. So, do we need a microphone, John?
So, can you only attach the one CL6, or are they stackable?
To my knowledge, only one.
Okay.
Now, that's a good question, though, because the connector still exists down below.
Right.
So I don't see why you couldn't go ahead and attach one. But what it would do once you did that kind of scares me. I don't know. I'm not sure what would happen. You stand back. But I think it's safe to say that you could only use one CL6.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I saw that it was the 5 AA's to power it itself. Is there perhaps a battery pack or something like that you can use instead of the AA's, or is it just the AA's or the AC adapter?
On this machine, it's the internal batteries will, or anything that connects to it, the internal batteries are going to be AA's.
Okay.
There's not a provision for a battery pack that I'm aware of, like there is on the 7 Series recorders. So, yes, Jeff?
But his question was whether it's internal batteries or AC. It's not internal batteries or AC. It's internal batteries or external DC.
Yeah.
It could be an AC to DC adapter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, now you can power it with the internal AA batteries. You can also power it with an external DC supply.
Okay.
Yeah, like from a BDS or even a wall wart AC to DC adapter. So you can use an external battery. A lot of people use like an NP1 going through a distribution box to power the mixer and other devices.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let's see, one more thing while we're on the subject of power. With the recorder, if you're in external power mode, let's say you're feeding it from a BDS device, and you have AA batteries inside, if for some reason you lose external power, it gets unplugged or your external battery dies, and you happen to be in the record mode, the unit will go to AA batteries until you press stop on the recorder, and then it will turn itself off. So in other words, it's a battery-saving feature so that you can't accidentally leave it on and drain your batteries if you're in the external mode. But it will not turn off on its own if you're in record mode. All right? So it's both battery-saving on one side, but it's a safety feature against loss recording on the other side. Was there one more question? Jeff? Yes.
One question that has come up before with most of the sound devices, recorders and other recorders, is what happens if you lose all power? In other words, let's say you don't have the AA's fitted, and you're powering from external DC, and that power gets pulled while you're recording. It's still not clear to me what happens with the file. I mean, what potentially could you lose in terms of audio?
Right. I assume that this recorder is like the other sound devices recorders, the 7 Series, in that it does record directly to this media in broadcast waveform, in broadcast wave files. So what it does to prevent losing an entire take if you lose power, it's constantly saving itself. So I don't recall exactly what the interval is, what the maximum amount you could lose. I believe it's down to just a few seconds. Right? But before they had that feature, it would have been possible if you lost power to lose the entire segment that you're recording. That's not so anymore. Yes, Ryan?
We have a question from an online user. Does the screen on the CL6 just show metering, or does it have any other functions?
Yes, there are several other screens available that show metering, et cetera, et cetera. I'm afraid the only ones I had available in photographic form were the ones that we see now. But there are a number of other screens that you can scroll through besides just this one. Yes, Jeff? Mm-hmm.
The user manual, which is available online now, has a number of screenshots that show you. They have one screen they call the RTN screen, which I think there is the return screen or something, and also a matrix screen and various other things. So it's if you can get a hold of the manual online, I don't know how widely it's distributed at this point. That'll give you a lot of screenshots.
Okay, good point. Hello, Rod. There's a couple more seats up front if you want to sit. But while we're on the subject of the screen, here's something I think people find very interesting, because these screens are fantastic that are being used in these types of devices now, because they can show so much information. In fact, I think this is the screen on this machine here, in many ways, is preferable to what's on their somewhat more capable 7 Series recorders, because it's larger, it's in color, there's higher resolution, you can get a lot more information there. But as people in here probably know, when you're out in the field and something like this is in a bag, or even if it's on the cart and the sun's behind you, it can be a challenge to read it in direct sunlight. This, if I get the name correctly, I believe it's called a refractive LCD screen. So it's backlit so that you can see it in the dark. But when you add light, it actually enhances it instead of washing it out. So it is truly a sunlight readable screen. Mm-hmm. Anything else on the mixer? Ryan, yes?
One of our users online is asking about metadata and capability of inputting notes in.
Yes. Yes. Well, metadata is certainly part of the recorder. Whether or not it's notes, I don't know that it wouldn't be possible for notes.
There is.
Okay. Jeff Wexler says that there is. I tend to believe what he says.
I feel like I've already done more research on this item than.
I was driving 7 hours between.
Exactly. What I saw again in the user manual was a list of preset notes.
That's right. A library of notes.
And also there is
right.
keyboard support.
Yep.
Yes,
so there's USB.
Get to that notes field.
Right. Yeah, there's a USB connector on the right side for a keyboard to expedite metadata entry. But you can also enter metadata fairly quickly just with the onboard screen. It's a matrix with the alphabet, and you scroll through and click the letter you want, and in a fairly short amount of time, you can get pretty quick at it. It's I'd say much faster than the 7 series recorders, which is another advantage of having this type of screen. You can also, it has a library for storing custom entered notes. Mm-hmm. Okay. The blue shirt.
Now, I know it has a flash card and an SD card, but
yes.
Can you hook up a hard drive or a computer to it as well?
I believe so. Jeff?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know.
I think you have to pull the cards to access them.
Okay. Now, but since you brought up it has 2 cards. It records to a compact flash and an SD card, both. One way I can see of using that, let's say first of all, you would want to record all the tracks onto, let's say, the compact flash. But let's say that you would need to walk, for dailies purposes, just send a simple mix, even a mono mix, over to the DIT for film break or for wrap at the end of the day. You don't have to give away the entire recording. You can quickly make just a mono recording and send that to the DIT for dailies transfer. Right? Or you can put everything on the card, but you do have that 2-card option. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. As we know now, it's a 10-track recorder. 10-track integrated recorder. One reason it occurred to me that this truly is a mixer first and a recorder second is because however you route the audio through the inputs and to the outputs, the recording tracks will always mirror the outputs of the mixer. In other words, it doesn't have the ability to route something to an output, but route it differently to the same recording track. Right? On one hand, I think you're giving up a little bit of versatility in exchange for simplicity, which means less mistakes can be made. I think for having the versatility of having a separate output mix and also a separate recording track mix also leaves you to the possibility of making quite a few mistakes that you can't really fix. So if you don't need the versatility of having completely separate recording tracks and mix bus outputs, then this machine is better suited for what you do. Right? If you send it to an output, it's going to appear on that recording track. For instance, the top 2 meters indicate recording tracks and outputs, L and R, left and right. That's the main mix bus. Those are always going to be post-fader. So if you have a microphone coming in this side, plugged into input number 1, you bring up fader number 1, it's going to go to the left and the right tracks, depending on how you have the pan pot, of course. But you bring up the fader, it's going to show up on the top 2 mix tracks. it's going to go out those outputs, left and right outputs, and it's also going to be recorded post-fader on those tracks. Jeff, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, I believe also that whatever you have plugged into input number 1 goes to track 1.
That's correct. I was getting to that.
Yeah, pre-fader, and that can't be changed.
That's correct. That's correct.
So again, what Glenn is saying is that the trade-off is you have the simplicity, but if you need that additional facility to be able to do separate output mixes to service the sort of job you're doing, then this is not the recorder mixer for you.
Well, except that it does, the 2 aux tracks that I'm going to get to in just a second,
right, that
does have the ability to do different custom mixes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the 6 inputs, when you bring up the fader, they will go post-fader to the left and right mix buses and left and right record tracks. It's always going to be the same. Any input will also go to the pre-fade ISO tracks. So you send an input and bring the gain trim up. Even if the fader is off or fully down, it's going to be isolated onto its pre-fade ISO track, 1 through 6. Right? So it's very simple. You don't have to think about assigning it to that. It's already going to be there. Right? And I've been using nonlinear systems since they came out. And I love the versatility, but I got to say that having that versatility has caused some mistakes that would not have happened if I had a more simple device. So, pardon me? No, I think it was the machine that made the mistake. I just got the blame. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I've made some doozies. You just got to keep laughing through them. That's the secret. All right, so just to review this again, so that the post-fader outputs will always go to the left and right mix bus and the left and right record tracks. There's 2 other tracks that you can see. The top 2 are left and right. The 2 below that are aux 1 and aux 2. They can be a custom mix of the post-fader outs, post or pre, right? So if you do, let's say, want to do, let's say, a wireless mic only recording track, you can assign that to aux 1. Or if you want to send, let's say, just your booms to their own track mixed, you can send that to aux 2. All right. So the 10 tracks consist of the left and right mix, aux 1 and 2 for a customized mix, and then ISO tracks 4 through 10 for pre-fader isolations. So to give an example of how useful, it's Sound Devices makes a point to say this is a mixer, and by the way, it's got a 10-track recorder integrated. That tends to detract from the abilities of this recorder. To kind of put that in perspective, much of this year I've spent as the sound mixer on a TV show, an ABC TV show called Nashville. It's fairly complex in that there's a lot of music. We typically go, five radio mics, or up to 5. Let's say 4 radio mics, a live singing voice, one of the actors singing live, and then on let's say the 6th input, we've got music playback. There's not a scene that I did on that show in 3 episodes that I could not have done with this recorder, right? So I want to make that point that this recorder is very capable. It's not as versatile and sophisticated possibly as the 7 series recorders, but I just want everybody to know that this recorder is quite capable, very capable. Questions? Yes, sir.
So basically, all 6 inputs can route to left and right, and then they get their own from 1 through 6 ISO channels automatically. In other words, 1 through 6, you can do a mix, pan left. You can do a boom mix, and you can pan whatever other channels to the right side for your wire mix. So they're all automatically going to 1 and 2, no matter what.
That's correct.
Okay,
post fader, you bring the fader up, it's going to go to 1 and 2.
Okay, and according to how you pan it.
That's correct.
Okay, that's great.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I want to point out, too, that's not to say that you have to record 10 tracks all the time. You can arm and unarm the tracks. But what goes to those